Welcome to the WanderLearn Show. I'm your host, Tapon. I'm here with Nomadic Matt. Welcome, Matt. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How's it going with you?
I'm good. What part of the world are you in right now?
I'm currently in Austin, Texas.
Oh, okay, great. All right, nice. So you escaped New York, your home base. So you're actually one of those nomads who does have a home base in New York, and I imagine you just picked it because it's like a metropolitan hub.
I actually am a resident of Austin, Texas. I am just in New York most of the year. I split between the two, depending on the seasons.
Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay, cool. All right, great,
Yeah,
excellent.
yeah, yeah.
So you just came out with a brand new book. Actually, it's not a brand new book in the sense it's a revised, but you pretty much revised it soup to nuts, didn't you? It was originally called How to Travel the World with $50 a day. Now it's $75 a day for natural, obvious reasons that there's inflation that kicked in, especially post COVID. Tell us a little bit about the book and why you wrote it.
Yeah, so like you said, this is a new edition of an old book. How to Travel the World on $50 a day is now $75 a day. The last edition came out in 2017, and since then, just so much of the world has changed. Not only prices because of inflation, hence why there's a new price, but just the travel industry as a whole, the world as a whole. COVID really shifted the landscape, and so I wanted a book that was just a little bit more relevant. So, I, as a travel writer, know how guidebooks can get dated really quickly, and so I wanted my book to not be dated. So I was like, it's time for an update. And as I started this process to write it, I went in thinking like, okay, like I know some stuff is out of date. I'll have to remove some sections, and then you update all the prices as you do. Uh, but what I thought would take me like a month ended up taking me like 6 or 7 because it wasn't going to be as simple as I thought. So much of travel has changed um, that I ended up rewriting like 80% of this book because entire methods of travel, saving money were gone, companies were gone. I was just finding that, by the time I had taken out all the outdated material, there wasn't much left. And so when I went in to re-add it all in, it's just, that was that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, one example of the many things, if those who are wondering, like what has changed, I used to be a huge couch surfer, and I've kind of, ever since they added a pricing, which is not that much, but still, for whatever reason, it causes friction. And so I didn't pursue couch surfing. And as you pointed out, it's now moved on to Facebook groups, right?
There's a number of, couch surfing like services, staying with locals for free. Hospitality networks is the formal name. Um, but during COVID, they paywalled the entire site. I mean, you can't even log in without
Right.
doing it. And I mean, I think it's a nominal fee, but as you said, that friction is enough to just basically cause the collapse of it. There's not a lot of people who use it anymore. There weren't a lot of people using it a lot before COVID, like right before. Um, and now, like, I don't really know anyone who does it because you can't even like go to the free events without paying. And so
Wow.
there are similar services like Hospitality Club, um,
Be welcome.
Be Welcome service, which is, been around since the 70s, and they still exist, but they're again, couch surfing was the 400-pound gorilla.
Yeah.
Um, and they just don't, kids these days, so to speak, just don't use them as much as they used to. But what has really shifted is, as like I said, it's Facebook groups. There are a lot of Facebook groups out there, and you think of Facebook as like something like, the Gen Z kids don't use, but in this instance, they there are a lot of digital nomad groups, Find the Travel Buddy, Girls Love Travel, backpacking, insert region of the world, groups where people meet other travelers and meet locals, where you can do a combination, you can just do meetups and, free. I mean, Couchsurfing's problem is always like, how do you monetize it?
Right.
And when they got bought by a venture capital firm in the early 2010s, you know, that was always going to be the writing was always on the wall, right? PE always ruins everything. So. you know. And so yeah, I mean, it's such a shame, I mean, it was the thing for like a good solid, decade, and then it just it just got weird.
You saved money, you travel budget. That's been kind of the theme of your book. What is a time when you like went like embarrassingly low and you kind of like paid the price for like, you know what, I was a little bit too cheap this time around.
Those overnight buses, Southeast Asia, where you're like, okay, I could fly for $80, or I can take this like 24-hour overnight bus for 10. And then you take the bus and you're like, I'm so uncomfortable. You're not sleeping. You're eating, like, you're not stopping for a real meal. So you're living off like Pringles, right? Everyone eats those cans of Pringles when they're traveling. Um, the bathroom situation is gross. And it's just like, should have just taken the flight.
Yeah, that is true. Although I did discover in Vietnam they have these kind of sleeper buses, which are probably the most comfortable buses I've ever ridden in, because they literally have basically a bed with a TV that never works. But it's pretty amazing. I'm sure you've tried them.
I have slept in that sleeper bus, and I did not enjoy the experience because it's too cold. They're always like they crank that AC like
Yeah.
so much. There's always like a loud movie, and like they just honk so much in Vietnam. Like it's
Yeah.
just, I mean, when you're young and broke, it's the way to go.
Right. Exactly. But I discovered a lot of things in your book. I really came in there kind of like with a jaded, like, I've traveled quite a bit. I've been to 127 countries. I've seen a lot, done a lot. And I was like, okay, what can Nomadic Matt teach me? Even though you're like the number one travel blogger out there, I still was kind of skeptical, frankly, going into your book. And I was like, wow, I learned a lot. It's really, I recommend it. If I can learn a lot, I think anybody who's listening to this could learn a lot too, probably. And one of the things I hadn't really discovered, you're much more of a foodie than I am. And you talked about these different ways to kind of meet locals through food. And, like there's different, like Eat With is one of the examples. And I think you give it like 3 different examples. Can you talk a little bit more about that and the different sites and how they compare?
Yeah, so Eat With, Traveling Spoon, there's a few smaller other ones are all just designed sort of like Airbnb for food, where let's say you love cooking, whatever, Thai food, right? Like that's like you went to Thailand, you love it, you, like just want to share your love of Thai food. So you would like post on these sites, like, for X dollars, like come over to your house and you make me dinner. Um, and so it's just a way to meet locals in a more intimate setting around food. You know, they're often, not cheaper than a meal. Hosts tend to price a little bit more expensively
Mhm.
when they factor in the cost of groceries and their time. But you're doing it less about because it's like a quote unquote cheap ways to eat, and more of it's a way to just like meet somebody and talk, And so I've done it a few times. I do enjoy it. You know, Eat With is the biggest one, and there's a few others that are smaller. So it's really just about searching them all, like same way you would like a booking website. You'd search a couple to find what you want. Um,
So there's not one that you like more than the others, Matt.
Eat With has the largest inventory,
Okay.
uh, but
It's not geographically like Eat With is good in North America and Traveling Spoon is better in Europe or whatever.
no, no, it's just kind of all the same.
Okay.
They're all kind of spread out.
So the basic idea is that
But you,
this is good for somebody who wants to have, a restaurant priced meal, but then with the bonus of having some locals who've either cooked it and you can hang out with them. And this is especially good for somebody who's a solo traveler, right?
yeah, if you are looking for ways to, um, again, meet people, this is a good way to do so.
Excellent. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, I want to talk to Matt about Africa and talk about other ways to save money when we're traveling. Let's take a quick break.